Hi everybody! Today we're going to be going through Volume 2, Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim covers books 3 and 4.
Last we left off with Volume 1 was our introduction to Clash at Demon Head, which is Envy's band with Ramona's ex, Todd Ingram, who is my favorite evil ex, at least up to this point.
Why is that?
Because he's a vegan.
Apparently, if you just stop eating meat, instantaneously you'll have at least some good ability to levitate things with your mind.
Starts off and they see this flame. Scott doesn't know what it is and Kim's like, it's a save point, you idiot. And he's like, oh! And starts hustling towards it.
I wish there were more things like that in life. You know, if someone needed help, like there's a little exclamation point above their head.
Yeah.
So Merlin would just have an exclamation point over his head all the time because we can constantly do side missions for him. Just feed him.
Snuggle him.
Love him.
Yeah. Take him on walks. He loves adventures. He loves the outside.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so backstage we've got Scott's band and their groupies and Envy's band and her groupies, and there is just the most awkward silence between them. Nobody really knows what to say because there's X's on both sides, so it's a whole thing. I felt tension like that before, and it's like, who's gonna break that? I don't really know what Envy's play was here, but I'm assuming Todd already knew about Scott at this point.
Yep.
So he knows that he's supposed to be fighting him, and Envy likes to just mess with Scott because she's an evil bitch.
She does have some reasons.
Knives had put a streak of red in her hair, highlight. She is the one that really breaks attention and stands up and is like, you're an evil bitch to Envy. Envy's drummer just gets up and smacks Knives so hard, it smacks the highlights out of her hair.
Yes, that is correct.
That's amazing.
Because the drummer actually has bandages. I don't know if you can see that in the film version, but the drummer has some sort of cybernetics installed into her arms.
Her whole arm, just the one, is a robotic arm. Yeah.
Weird fact about that movie, he's played by Elvis Costello's daughter. Edgar Wright's a big fan of the music, or whoever casted her, so.
Yeah.
Right on ya.
Pretty cool. Back then, we do see Envy singing, and Scott was actually on the drum.
Yeah.
He wasn't a bass player at the time, which I thought was interesting.
Right.
And you still had Steven Stills as the lead guitar.
Yeah, so they were all in school together, so like college school.
Freshman year.
Yep.
So they do like a little run through of everyone that's in this room now, and it was a little nice refresher, and I always think it's funny what they put down as the lines, like Ramona Flowers wants to get the hell out of here ASAP. Julie Powers wants to get on Envy's good side now that she's famous. Like little things like that, like everyone's motivation as to why they're here.
Ramona's, because she's always on the run. She does not want to own up to her past. She doesn't want to face her past. She ran all the way to Canada to get rid of it.
Amazing how quickly they all come back.
Whoever's behind the League of Evil Exes has followed her here. And I'm guaranteed they'll follow her anyway. Carry that baggage. Like in Cowboy Bebop, you're going to carry that weight.
And we do start seeing Todd's powers, and his hair flies up because, of course, Envy's trying to instigate Ramona, which just really feeds into Scott's issues.
Even though Envy is a pretty big deal now, that she was the most successful person from that band and left because she looked at the others, like Steven Stills and Scott, as if they were like weights on her.
Yeah.
She left that behind and she became one of the biggest indie pop stars ever, but she never really forgot Scott. Kind of got lost of like who she was. Like once she becomes a big deal.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing her in college when she's Natalie V. Adam, and it says temper nerdy, and she's got extra long hair, but it's pulled back in a ponytail, and no makeup, and just kind of like everyday clothes. You know, more like what I'm wearing right now. Whereas when she's superstar, they go through her outfit, and it's like multi-millions of dollars is her outfit. Like her boots are well over $1,000, and hair and makeup's always done because she has a team of people. And I'm like, okay, that's not unrealistic, but it does seem like her personality really changed after she left Like, almost like she doesn't remember who she was before.
Yep.
I think Scott sees that as well too. So they start fighting, Scott and Todd do, as well as going back and forth between their flashbacks and now.
Yep.
And you see how much Scott and, at the time, Natalie is what she went by, how like close and cute they were. And he's like, can I call you? And she's like, yeah, every damn night. And it was just like cute, the two of them. And you do start seeing like a little bit of Envy's change coming through, but we don't really see, like, there isn't a dramatic one part that starts doing it. It's pretty slow. Like, her wardrobe starts slowly changing.
Yeah.
She starts wearing a little bit more makeup. She starts doing her hair a little bit more while she and Scott are going at it. She's like, no, call me Envy. Which I really thought was a name that he would have picked from the way he said it in the last book. So I was kind of surprised that she was the one that picked it herself.
Yeah.
She came up
Very
with that.
on the nose, that name.
Yeah. Scott tells her he loves her, and Envy doesn't say anything back, ever. It's so sad. We now start seeing and we hadn't in a while, but we started seeing the lines coming around Ramona's head again. So there's a few frames with those. And I wondered if that was because Todd was there, and anytime any of her exes get around, she gets those. Because I think it has something to do with Gideon. Apparently, Wallace isn't with the other Scott. He says he's dating this guy named, like, Mobile. Wallace is like, can you stay somewhere else tonight? Because Mobile's coming back, or Mobile, I don't know how you say it. And Ramona's like, yeah, he can stay with me. Which I thought was pretty cool, because for the most part, up till now, it really felt like Scott was the one that was pushing towards this relationship. Wallace learned from Mobile, you make this face and then shake, you can shake off all the water on you. It looks like what Merlin does when he's wet. He'll like shake off, and then his clothes are completely dry. And he does mention that Mobile is psychic.
Yeah, it's a video game world where everybody has abilities.
They're supposed to be meeting up here, Envy and Todd, and then at least Scott and Ramona were going to be coming into Honest Ed's. And I didn't really get what it was. It just says it's fun to shop at Honest Ed's. Explanation none. Todd's not allowed to use any of his psychic powers.
Yep.
Because that's unfair to Scott. They're supposed to make it from the front of the store all the way to the end, as well as kill each other.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the store is? Like, what the store is like?
Store that sells everything.
Yeah, it's like a big discount department store. And it's all clearance, buy 3, get 2 free kind of stuff all through there. The guys are trying to go through, and they loved this. Definitely an Evil Dead reference.
Yep.
That made me very, very happy, that one. And Todd assembles some sort of long rifle gun with all household items, which was fun. And then Scott just has on like sunglasses, gloves, and a helmet. And he's trying to dodge everything.
Yep.
Well,
because everything gives you power-ups.
Yes. Yeah. Which I thought was fun. And his psychic powers started
manifesting.
Yes, they did. And we see this flashback to this older guy.
Yeah.
And I believe that to be his father. And he said...
Also looks like the architect a little bit from Matrix Reloaded.
Oh, I've not seen that.
See, he's the architect.
Okay.
Behind the whole algorithm and the computer system that is the Matrix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he says, you'll never be a vegan. You just don't have the willpower.
Not an unjust assessment. He doesn't have the willpower. He breaks it often when he thinks he's not going to get caught. And he treats his love interest the same way. He thinks he can have it all.
So he has that moment of seeing his father in his head. You'll never go through with it. And it just makes him explode. But he doesn't actually explode. Instead, Honest Ed's explodes. And it's this huge pile of rubble.
Yep.
Yes. I know Ramona doesn't like the band, which she doesn't have to like Scott's music. And Kim does make a point later on to him and is like, look, she still comes to all of our shows.
Mm-hmm.
What does it matter if she likes it or not? She's still supportive of something that's important to you.
Yeah. Same way with April and Andy.
Yeah.
From Parks and Recreation.
I was thinking, like, you're never gonna love dance as much as I do, because I've grown up with it.
Yeah.
It's something that's important to me, that I've had years of training in.
Yeah.
But yet you know that it's important to me, and so you will support me on it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though particularly the style of dance that I prefer is one that is, I think
Right.
your least favorites.
Also, the aesthetics of the characters and what they're wearing. This issue is really important. You see that Todd has a giant 3 on his shirt.
Yes.
Which is probably referring to the third book or the third X
Mm-hmm.
in the League of Evil X's.
And
then Scott is wearing a Zero shirt,
yeah.
which is a skateboarding company.
Oh, with the star underneath? Is that
right?
Okay.
But it's even in the same color scheme as Todd's.
The black and white.
But also makes you think of a couple of things. Like Scott is potentially an evil X in training, and
Aww.
he's level 0. But also, along with what you said about his band, people don't consider his band a real band.
No.
They're like your favorite local, whatever garage band.
Mm-hmm.
Is how other people treat it.
Except Knives.
Well, even in
Knives loves it.
a little spoiler for the Netflix show, she doesn't treat it as a real band either.
No,
it's
she
her
doesn't.
favorite, so-so band.
Yeah, that's true. Because she still loves Clash at Demon Head the best.
Yeah, that's a real band.
Yeah, that's a real band.
Right. That shirt could be relating to Scott and how he sees himself as being like not so good at anything to really have him stand out.
We do get the background story of Ramona and Todd, and she says she was dating Lucas, and the minute that she saw Todd, she just really didn't even dump Lucas. She just stopped hanging out with him and went off with Todd. So shit moved there, although that is also very high school.
Yeah.
People didn't own up to anything, so I'm like, okay, I can't really give her too much shit there. She wasn't an adult yet.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about dairy scientists and what it means to be a real vegan. And that's when the infamous punch a hole in the moon scene happens.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool and also something to remember. Yeah, when we graduated, he went off to the vegan academy, and then I went up to university, and apparently it was in the sky. It's tethered to a mountain, which was so cool. I was like, I would love to learn more about that, but I don't think we're going to. Okay, so then it hits. This was something that I think was left out of the movie, if I remember correctly, and was definitely not in the show. Todd is totally hooking up with the bionicle one-arm woman that's their drummer in the band.
Right.
I don't know her name. She doesn't give a name. And in that same scene, he's also caught eating gelato, which is made with milk and eggs and definitely not vegan.
Mm-hmm.
So, what the fuck on both of those?
Yeah, he's definitely not a guy that follows the rules.
No.
He breaks them a lot.
Yeah. If he got the vegan tattoo, he'd have to have that part of his skin cut off. He's not a vegan. Oh, Scott finally gets his hair cut. Ramona offers to do it for him. So that ends that whole fiasco from the last book because he's been obsessed over it still. So she finally pulls out scissors from her bag, which you told me is like a bag of holding, and you're totally right.
Mm-hmm.
I did make a comment to you as these people hang out together so much, nonstop, and they all live together. They all eat together constantly and go places together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm noticing that Ramona likes it, but then at one point she does say to Scott, I'm gonna go home and I need you to find somewhere else to be. I don't know if it's just because she's with everybody constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And maybe because she's been a loner a lot of her life.
And it's also more pressure on Scott because he said, or he's starting to think that if he was giving too much effort, putting too much effort towards Envy and being around her a lot, and she starts to build enough distance away from him, maybe it's his fault. So if he's overcrowding Ramona, he's going to feel self-conscious about being around her all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he wants to be around her.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
I don't trust her. They are at the Lee's Palace, which they've been at before, and they're supposed to be opening for Clash at Demon Head. Everyone shows up. Scott does drink, and he makes a point in this multiple times. He's like, I don't drink. Then there's the boys and Crash, and if you remember them from the first book, they were the ones who were opening before Scott's band when Matthew Patel came in. And they have upgraded to not having to use musical instruments.
Yes.
They have these power gloves and they make the music from that. That's so cool.
It's not too far off because we went and saw Muse and they sang a few songs, like Resistance, I think, where they were just using the power glove. Which is crazy cool. I'm pretty sure their backup used a guitar during that song, but yeah,
it was just him, the main singer who had it on his arm and was doing stuff. But that was freaking awesome. That's exactly what I thought of when I saw this. Because they're still singing, but then they've got these giant gloves on their hands.
Oh, look, it's Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph and Holly. Scott sees Knives sitting in the alleyway behind the Lee's Palace. And they have kind of a sweet little interaction. And he does end up apologizing to her.
Yeah.
For how things have gone down. He was like, look, it wasn't that bad, right? And she was like, yeah, it was, Scott. It was really that bad for me. And I just think, again, him being, I don't like to always just say stupid boy, but he was definitely being a stupid boy in that. And not realizing how much it meant to her and then trying to downplay it. If you can't tell me how to feel, maybe it wasn't all that much to you, but it was to me. And so it's a lot. But yet she still hangs out with the group. And she's still sort of dating young Neil.
The young Neil thing was originally to make Scott a little jealous.
And she's like, I totally love you. And then leaves. And you're like, oh, okay, that's not good. That's not healthy at all. Oh, and then, this was a bit of a surprise. Envy and Ramona go at it.
Yes, they do.
Ramona pulls out her hammer and it's a +2 against girls. They have Envy doing a lot of kicks, particularly like big power, like high kicks, which I loved. And everyone's cheering for Envy because of course she's famous.
Kick her in the balls.
And Wallace is cheering Ramona on. He's the only one, which Wallace is just so great. This book would not be as wonderful without him.
Yeah.
I just decided that, And then Knives steps in before Envy can take out Ramona. And gets some damage. Scott jumps in, and apparently, Envy's weakness, where is it?
Back of her knees.
Yeah. He just...
Whenever they would make out, he would just, give a little, That was her move, or his move.
So it was the back of her knees. Yeah.
And who did they give that to in the movie?
I don't remember.
Oh my god, you have to watch the movie.
I've seen it once.
They gave that to Roxy. Because Ramona's like, that's how, whenever we're making out. And then Scott's like, enough! And then he presses the back of her knee.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then she orgasms into a bunch of coins. Sorry, anybody that's under, 18 or whatever hearing this.
Envy flops to the ground in a fit of ecstasy.
Yeah.
And Ramona yells out, Todd's been cheating on you with your drummer. Yeah, and he even punched a hole in the moon for me. And Ramona's like, there are 2 holes in that moon. One is for you and one is for me. So you weren't the first one that he did that for. Todd says he's not gonna fight Envy. She goes up to hug him and he says, Envy, you're my girl. And she goes, oh, Todd, let's both be girls. And then knees him right in his crotch. This was where it did make me laugh because this chapter is called Destroy All Vegans. Not cool, but it made me laugh. They're gonna have a base battle between Todd and Scott, and Scott pretty much loses.
If it wasn't clear enough from before, Todd is just a cool, beefier version of Scott. He's got nicer clothing. He's got the cool Super Saiyan hair when he's using his abilities. He even wears the sweatbands and the similar ringer t-shirts. And he also is a way more talented bass player than him.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite things about the bass battle from the movie is that whatever Scott and his progression that he's playing, Todd is able to improvise and play off of his rhythm in a much fancier, more solo-esque kind of way. And it's really well done.
Well, then Crash and the boys jump in and help out, but really the only thing that stops Todd is the vegan police. And the best part is they don't even have guns. They just use their fingers.
Yeah.
And they're going to pull away his power. So they just shoot their fingers at him, and it sucks out all of his vegan power. And he...
No vegan diet, no vegan powers.
That's right. And he can't get away from it.
Right. And oh no, his hair.
Yeah, his hair is not cool anymore. It does end up looking a bit more like Scott's, which I thought was interesting.
Right.
He goes into a bunch of coins and also a life. So Scott gets an extra life, which I forgot about because they actually have that in the movie as well too.
Yep.
And that's going to be very important for him later on that he has that.
Absolutely. And also, another trivia fact, in the video game, there's a side-scroller beat-em-up Scott Pilgrim video game where if you defeat Todd Ingram, you can actually get a 1-up. You can get an extra life. And so, before I fought any of the other bosses, if I knew they were going to be more difficult, I would just farm Todd Ingram over and over. So I would just keep getting the extra lives so I didn't have to buy them, and then progress throughout the rest of the game. So... Oh yeah, and vegan police show up during that fight too.
Nice.
That was the only opportunity you could really combo off of them.
So we do see the flashback to when Envy ended up leaving for New York, and she didn't really say bye to Scott, which I think kind of reminds him what he's done to others as well too, because he says, well, I was hoping for some closure.
Yep.
And he didn't get that.
It's exactly almost shot for shot of when he had to move away from Kim.
Yeah, good call. I didn't even think of that.
Yep.
Yeah. So then we get into summer, which was totally cool because we've not seen other seasons like in the movie.
Absolutely.
Everything happens back to back so quickly. Again, makes sense because, you know, it's just a movie.
Right.
But this one's called 2 Months Off, and their people are hanging out at the beach. They're having fun together. Knives is still there, hanging out with all of them. But
just keeping an eye on Scott.
Yeah, Scott and Ramona are really cute together, and everyone's doing pretty well. Although the band has taken off some time, and Steven Stills has decided that they're going to be recording. So they haven't been performing in a couple of months. And Scott also notices that Ramona hasn't been changing her hair, which in the book she says she changes it every 3 weeks.
Yes.
I thought it was every week and a half in the movie or something.
Yes, that is also correct.
Oh, okay. So in the book it's every 3 weeks.
Yep.
And she hasn't done it in a long time. So I thought that signified that she was...
Having fun?
Yeah. And like...
Doing your hair is really fun, but if you had a routine at home, so when you're breaking that, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, I haven't done that.
Well, it's like she's happy with the way things are in the relationship, so she doesn't feel like she needs to keep changing herself and doing different things. Like, I'm happy with who I am and with who I am with. So I thought that was a really good sign, and the fact that Scott noticed, I thought was a pretty big deal. Scott did one of the days they were all at the beach and they came back and they were pretty much all drunk. Scott wandered upstairs and he sees Kim and Knives making out.
Yes.
That's it. We don't talk about that anymore.
Drunk making out session.
Yeah. I think you had asked me earlier too, like, what was Kim's sexual preference? I was like, I'm not sure. I think she's at least bi.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if she's really that interested in Knives.
I think they have the little thing in the, like an ongoing thing. It's like you either have the spark or you don't. And I'm gonna do some kissing to find out who I've got sparks with.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah. So then we see Wallace and Scott together, and Wallace starts bringing up, hey, we gotta go meet with Peter, our landlord. And Scott's like, no, wait, that guy's friggin' intense and very scary. I don't want to meet with him. He's like, no, we gotta meet with him because we gotta use our charm because we're always late on our rent. We also hear that Kim is finally moving, and I was like, thank God, because her roommates were awful.
It's a book about romance and romances. So Scott takes notice of how other relationships work.
Mm-hmm.
So just for clarification, this is how Scott clarifies like who's who and who could possibly end up with who.
There's a massive heat wave up in Canada, and Wallace calls Scott and is like, hey, you gotta get out of the apartment because apparently it doesn't have air conditioning. And he's like, please go someplace with air conditioning, or better yet, go get a job.
Yeah.
So he goes to the mall for some AC. He's sitting there, and who does he meet there, Clay?
Lisa.
Who's wearing this tiny little dress? And Scott
Yes.
notices the tiny little dress.
Yes, he does.
So they're chatting, and Lisa, who's on the back of this, was like the first friend that we ever see Scott make in school.
Yeah.
And it was before Kim even.
He's a little scrappy. He always got into fights at school.
Yeah. And they never dated. Lisa and Scott never dated. But through this, you can tell that Lisa definitely has some feelings for Scott. And apparently she's here staying with her sister until she can get her visa. And then she's going to go to...
Get a visa for Lisa.
Oh my God. Yes, Clay. Writing fun.
It is fun.
And then she's gonna get her visa and go to the US because she's been doing some like super low budget Canadian films, and now she's gonna go big time to Hollywood. So she's just hanging out for the summer. It cuts over to Knives, and apparently, as they say in the book, her one friend Tamara, they notice that her shrine with Scott on it, there's been a big old X through it. And Tamara's like, well, I thought you were over Scott because you drew an X on his face in your shrine. And she's like, I didn't do that. I don't know who would have done that. Who did that? Scott brings Lisa around and they all become friends, and they keep hanging out at Sneaky D's, which is a late night Tex-Mexy bar.
I like Sneaky D's.
Sneaky D's. And they're doing it like every night. Going there. Not it. Not like that. That would be more fun than what this looks like. I mean, once in a while, cool. Like, they all get together. Like, Julie's there, Kim, Lisa.
Yeah.
Everyone's there. Kim even starts saying, didn't we used to play? Like, you never let us play anymore, Steven Stills. He's like, we're recording, okay? Gosh. That's his voice in my head. Scott starts walking around looking for a job. Kim marches him over to this vegetarian restaurant, which Clay was like, you should be happy about it because it's called the Happy Avocado and they're vegetarian. And I was like, just take it one step further. Vegetarian's not good enough for me. But
I would totally go vegetarian or go to this restaurant for some vegetarian food.
Yeah, just take all the dairy out. So Steven Stills works there. Steven Stills says, well, yeah, you could work as a dishwasher and then I could train you on the side for some other jobs and then you could, you know, like work your way up. And instantly Scott puts it in his mind, oh, you mean like leveling up?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I can do that. It's like, sure, if that's what it takes to get you to like come do a job.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great. And he's actually going to his job. He's getting it and he gets 500 XP. But then we see this ninja.
I'll tell you, that is Mr. Chow.
Yes, it is. And he's the one that put the X on Scott's face. Now is the big day when Wallace takes Scott and they're going to go talk to their landlord, Peter, who is super terrifying looking. Do you remember him? He's like shrouded in darkness.
Yeah. Kind of a scary guy.
Yeah, he's a terrifying looking guy. So he reminds them that their year lease is up that month. But then, on his way home, he keeps getting these flashes of, like, something going by him super fast. And who is it?
That's Roxy.
It is Roxy.
He punches her right in the boob.
He does. And then he starts making gagging sounds. So he figures out that Roxy is the fourth evil ex.
Yep.
And he was like, wait, I thought she said ex-boyfriends. And Roxy's like, I'm not a boy! And she gets so mad. It's kind of cute.
Roxy has that like barbarian rage, but as a ninja.
She does. Half ninja.
Half ninja.
She's a half ninja.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's super funny. She's got one of my favorite performances in the movie.
They keep calling her chubby though. Like she's kind of chunky. They said in this, and I was like,
oh, did they?
Yeah. Like she's not that much bigger than anybody else.
Oh, she's curvy.
Yeah, I was like, she's curvier.
Mm-hmm.
She's very short. Like she's short, little stocky thing. Is more of what I would say.
Yeah.
Ramona and Roxy end up in a vegetarian restaurant, and apparently Scott never told Ramona that he got a job, which I thought was super cute when she was like, wow, I'm really surprised that you didn't brag about getting a job to me. And he's like, I kept forgetting to.
Yeah.
I believe that, yes.
Yeah, I kept getting attacked.
Yes, I kept wanting to, but something else always came up.
Right.
We just made out a few times. Like, calm down. It wasn't really anything that big of a deal. And Roxy says, yes, it was. It was a big deal to me. And Ramona keeps trying to downplay it. And again, Scott and Ramona do that quite often to their exes. And
kind of interesting. So maybe it's like parallel to him and Envy.
Yeah.
Is how Ramona treated Roxy a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Scott hops in Ramona's bag, which we do see in the show happens. And she has her bat, which is a +1 against blonde.
Actually, one of my favorite portraits of Ramona Flowers.
This one?
And yeah, with Scott, it's hilarious. Because Scott is very terrified because he doesn't want to fight a girl.
No, he doesn't.
So like, Ramona has this really cool look.
Mm-hmm. And apparently, we find out that Roxy was the one that introduced Ramona to the subspace highway. So she follows Ramona in there, and they're doing some battling. Scott just refuses to partake in it. Roxy ends up leaving.
Roxy's a little upset that she can't seem to break her stubbornness and just see how at least she affected Roxy. Because Roxy was definitely more into her than she was into hers, which is not her fault.
Yeah.
But she should have acknowledged that in some way, give Roxy some closure before she just straight up walked out of her life.
Mm-hmm. Ramona when she was talking with Roxy at the restaurant, Roxy was saying that Scott was cheating on her with Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess she'd been watching him and just assumed, but from what we saw in the book, he never did. He never did cheat on her. And Ramona brings it up to him. You know what? I don't want to be with you tonight. Like, you need to go back to your own place. So Scott goes in, flips on the light, and Wallace is in there with the guy in Scott's face. Because he totally saw his junk.
Yeah.
And Wallace walks out and he's like, I am so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Here's cab fare. Go to Ramona's. And Scott's like, can I at least have my toothbrush? No. You need to leave now.
No.
No. Go away.
Aww.
So Scott's like, well, I can't go to Ramona's because she said she didn't want me. And he looks in his pocket, and the only thing he has in there is lint, a penny, some weird little toy, and then Lisa's phone number. So then we flip over, and he goes to Lisa's place. She ends up confessing to him that she had wished that something had happened. Duh, Scott. She liked you. And because I remember when he met Kim, Lisa looked really upset.
Right. So you don't even know her.
And she even admits that she was wearing what she wore when she saw him in the mall, which was that short little like dress. Yeah. Because all of her other clothes were dirty, and it was the only thing she could find. But she liked how Scott's was giving her all that attention with his eyes, so she started dressing like that all the time around him. She goes in for a kiss, and he's like, no, I love Ramona. And it's the first time we hear the L word, which he keeps thinking means lesbian, but everyone keeps meaning it as love.
Well, yeah, he's definitely in Lesbians with Ramona.
He is in Lesbians with Ramona. We see that Knives got a job at that Second Cup, which is like the Starbucks for this whole thing. Like a Tim Hortons.
That's where his sister and Julie work?
Yeah, but not the same one. We find out that it's her dad, and he's come to kill Scott.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's cool because you get to see where she got some of her sneak attack moves from and where she learned how to fight. Her dad is a very intimidating looking guy. He's got really cool hair. He's got his sunglasses always on.
Yes, and he was definitely the one that slashed up her doors. We see the most messed up dream. So we've never seen Ramona's dreams before until now. She is being controlled. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh yeah.
Okay. She looks like the little sex plaything for this person who's controlling her. And then it goes to real life. Ramona comes out and it's like, how dare you enter my dreams? She's upset because of something very personal, but then she also reminds herself, which I give her credit for because I don't like her. She does say, well, I've entered a lot of your dreams and not really asked permission, so
yeah,
I guess fair's fair type of thing. Hey, I just want to be honest with you, and I did sleep over at Lisa's place last night. And she's like, oh my god, are you in love with her? And he's like, no, absolutely not. I'm in love with you. And then freaking Roxy comes around the corner from Ramona's place, and she's like, hey Rami, everything okay out here?
Oh my gosh.
And this is where I hate Ramona, and you still are liking her, but I hate her because she made out with Roxy last night. And she's like, we only made out for a little bit, but I definitely totally love you too, Scott. If you love someone, you don't make out with your ex.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Roxy is that she's also super into Ramona, and they were a fling together. And I know your face.
So
maybe they thought that was going to be a part of the closure process, and Ramona, after kissing her, could say like, "Yeah, I didn't feel that same way I do for Scott." Because then Roxy will have that face, and then she'll maybe just accept and move on instead of having them fight to death and having one blow up the other one and turn into coins. I think the rules are a little different for this video game world.
She still cheated. She's a cheater. She's always gonna cheat.
I think she's grown out of it. She's getting better.
She's all worried about him doing stuff with Lisa, and it was probably because she'd been doing stuff with Roxy. She's a bitch. Anyways, we do get one frame of, he doesn't have a name at this point. What do you call him? Nega Scott?
Nega Scott.
Yeah. Scott runs away from him.
Just like a lot of the fighting and a lot of the characters and how they're designed are a lot like Street Fighter characters. And there's that classic poster of Street Fighter Alpha with good guy Ryu, who's looking at Akuma. And Akuma's supposed to be like that dark version of Ryu before evil Ryu was a thing. So Akuma was like the big bad of Street Fighter 2, like even more powerful than Bison. But yeah, he's just a really dark version of Ryu. He's got darker garb, or like a gi. He's got the red hair and the red eyes, and he looks like he could be like demonic almost. So Scott has a darker version of himself out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chow follows Scott inside. Roxy thinks that Mr. Chow was sent by Gideon. She starts taking on Mr. Chow, and they start fighting outside. And Ramona's just watching. She's a bitch. And Scott's like, I will do anything to make this relationship work, basically. Like, you're worth it type of thing. And then he levels up, and from his chest he pulls out the power of love sword, and it's like flaming.
Scott earned the power of love.
Yeah, he did.
Another quick question for you. In the movie, those announcer panels, and whoever does the round one, fight, like those kind of things, or KO, who's the voice that announces those things? It's one of your favorite comedians in movies. It's Bill Hader.
Oh, is it?
That's the one who yells those, yeah.
That's awesome.
From Barry and Superbad.
Scott steps in and then ends up taking on Roxy, and he splits her in half, and she turns into a bunch of bunnies and with like critters, and I love it. It's so cute.
Some characters turn into coins and kind of like your Marios and things like that. What video game do the actual robotics and bad guys turn into animals and you can collect them? I'll give you a hint. Ready? Sega. It's Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, I've never
Because Scott
played it.
really loves Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He's a video gamer.
There's references, I feel like, even more to Sonic in the TV show.
Because Dr. Robotnik in Sonic the Hedgehog uses animals like that to power his inventions.
Oh, okay.
So there's actual animals in there, so Sonic and Tails can bust them, collect the animals so they're safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That is cool. So Mr. Chow sees what Scott did.
Warriors respect.
Yeah. So he leaves. He stops trying to kill him. And then it cuts away. I just love this scene. I told you about it because it made me laugh. And Mr. Chow walks into Knives' room, and she's with her friend Tamara. And he says, and then they subtitle it because he says it in Chinese. And he says, "As far as I'm concerned, Scott Pilgrim is a halfway decent young man. Maybe you dating a white guy wouldn't be so bad." And then leaves. And Tamara looks at Knives and said, "What did he say?" And she goes, "I don't know. It was in Chinese."
Yeah.
Okay.
Just making him even more mysterious.
Yeah, I'm like, does he speak English? Does she really not speak any Chinese? That's
Right.
very strange. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're all eating some sort of Asian food together.
Yep.
Lisa's gonna be leaving because she got her visa finally. It's the end of the summer, so it definitely feels like the end of a chapter here with this. They're all moving along with their lives. The recording is coming to an end, which is great. Ramona's dyed her hair again, and Scott says his birthday is coming up, which is, do you remember what day is his birthday?
September
Yes.
3rd.
No, way later, 27th.
27th.
Yep. Scott's birthday is September 27th, so he will be how old then?
You'll be 24.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
And Ramona finally discloses how old she is.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
How old is she?
24. She'll be 25 on January 1st. Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have that weird birthday.
Yeah, and she's like, I know, it's pretty cool, right? And he's like, it's so cool. I mean, they're
It's
just
like the easiest
cute.
one to remember ever.
It is 1-1. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, score 1 for the January kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then it ends, just the two of them, and it says to be continued. Obviously, we know that there's 2 more books with the 1 volume, but this one felt like, I mean, you could almost, yeah, you haven't finished the X's, but we haven't even seen the twins. She's hinted at it, and Scott's like, wait, do I have to defeat both of them at the same time? And she goes, well, I never said they were going to come at you one at a time.
Right now.
And she, oh, okay, so what I said in the last video was that Ramona never said evil exes like she did in the movie. She always said evil ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
Boyfriends. In this, though, she started saying evil exes. And Scott. So I don't really get why in the first, Brian Lee O'Malley would have had
Ex-boyfriends?
Yeah, and then in this...
She didn't consider Roxy even an ex.
Oh, that's sad. That's really sad, though.
Yeah.
That just
Roxy's even way more sympathetic. Because she was just like, well, we made out a few times, so you're an ex?
Yeah, and she kept saying we were just roommates.
Yeah. Well, it meant a lot to Roxy, and I'm sure it meant a lot to some of the other exes like Matthew Patel, Lucas Lee, Todd Ingram, and up until this point, but her big ex, the one that she was always certain of, is still lingering in the background somewhere. So I don't know how you interpret that dream that she had, but she was very scared.
Gideon's still controlling her.
Yeah.
I started reading the 3rd volume today, and I was like, oh my god, this Gideon.
There's this cute little thing because she's also kneeled like that in front of him at the Chaos Theater in the movie, and he calls Scott, and it's like the funniest thing to me, but it's also really gross, is that she's kneeled down in front of his podium, and while he's talking to Scott, he's also like petting her, like brushing her hair and stuff. It's such a power move. And, yeah.
Ugh.
But Gideon, like outside of all those like obviously gross things. Oh, I want to get into Gideon's character, but I guess we'll wait till next book.
Yes.
Because we have the twins and the twins.
Twins.
And they do not get a lot in the adaptations.
No, they don't.
They
We
have
watched
my
the show,
absolute.
and they didn't either. And that.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
They get my absolute favorite scene in the Scott Pilgrim movie. I think it's one of the coolest action scenes as far as like CGI goes.
Oh, when they're actually battling.
They have the battle of the bands.
Yeah.
And I can only talk about that because it's so different from the book. It makes sense because you're trying to keep it at an even pace of like what happens here, what happens here. Okay, we have to build up to the end, so we need to have him meet potentially the last act. So, bam.
Oh, I forgot. And they never explicitly say it, and I remember why now because of what you said earlier. So Ramona makes a point to Scott, like, why are you still wearing those sweatbands on both wrists? Because Todd always did, and I think it was a reminder to her that Todd always did, because after he was gone, she got on Scott about wearing them and was like, it's the middle of summer, you don't need to wear those. Why are you still wearing those?
Yeah.
And I just thought that was interesting, that it was kind of like, she's feeling maybe a bit of like remorse, or I don't even know if it's remorse, but something like Todd's still kind of in her head there, at least at that moment, and is like, I don't want to remember things about him.
Right. Scott was also a drummer back in high school going into college.
He was.
And a lot of drummers wear those.
Yeah.
To protect their wrist and have a good like snapback on their drumsticks. So
yeah. Next time we will go over the third volume as well as talk about the show.
Yeah.
But spoiler alert, we really liked it.
It's really good.
Okay, so obviously we sleeved this one because it was great.
If you before you watch the Netflix adaptation, I would highly recommend at least watching the movie if you haven't seen it before. Watching the TV show, it's also on Netflix and it's under 2 hours. Because it's going to be that much more rewarding and you'll understand a lot more of the references and things that are going on. And bonus points if you can actually read all the books before you watch the Netflix adaptations, the actual Scott Pilgrim versus the World and Scott Pilgrim Takes Off.
Okay. All right, with that, thanks everyone.